Hello and welcome everybody to Topless Topics.
Please note that if you are watching this video on YouTube, you are watching the extremely censored version because YouTube hates women, me especially. If you'd like to see the uncensored version of this video, please visit the URL at the bottom of this screen. You may also wish to follow me on social media so that I can alert you when a new video goes up or another one gets banned. Thank you.
That is one thing. I've been making YouTube videos for a lot, basically since year one, and it's been interesting to see how much more accessible it is now. Like, there's so many options for recording, like even on your phone. Whereas when I started, I had like a tape, camcorder, and I had to convert it 3 times for potato quality. So that's interesting. Okay, so before you started doing your YouTube and stuff, like, what did your Vimeo have a theme, or was it just kind of a repository? No. Okay.
It was just every once in a while, I would be like, oh, let me make a video of this particular shoot that I'm doing. And sometimes it was behind the scenes, sometimes it was more specific. It might be like a 2 or 3 minute video that I would put on there, but they're really, it was totally centered around my photography.
Did you edit it, or was it just basically exactly?
Oh yeah, okay. No, I started editing, like, I think the first was probably like 1999.
Oh wow.
Is when I mean it was kind of the same thing. It was digital. It was a camcorder. It was digital 8, and so I learned video editing 20 something years ago, and so I've been doing it for a long time. And I still shoot a lot of video to this day. It's just most of it. I use the same equipment that I do for my YouTube channel, but.
So you mentioned like boudoir and stuff. Were any of the videos that you shot about that kind of thing, or were they all like closed photo shoots?
The Vimeo ones, they were boudoir-ish, I think. It's been so long since I lost the channel that I can't even. It was actually, I also do a lot with the shibari suspension and rope. And so I would put videos. So I think that's what I started.
That's technically considered a fetish by many, I'm sure. Because I'm curious, like, did you read the comments first of all? Did you read and respond to the comments on your Vimeo?
Oh yeah, and I never had. I didn't really Vimeo. I never felt like I had a lot of comments. I would get a lot of views, and it started picking up because when I first started posting, it's kind of like, oh, planting a tree in the forest.
Yeah.
I got 16 views on that video. Cool, but before they deleted the channel, I started getting some that they'd get 30, 40, 50,000. I had a few that were over 100,000 views on there. Because the nice thing, at least about Vimeo, was that other people can take your video and add it to a channel.
See, I don't like that.
Then, well, for me, it was fine. You're more of a niche, and I didn't really care. Where it didn't.
Well, and also,
it didn't benefit me other than a number.
Yeah, and also it's not really your body that's being
absolutely.
around. Yeah. So I think it does, it makes it definitely more personal. Like when people take my totally non-sexual topless content and then they re-upload it to Pornhub.
Right, yeah. No, you did definitely.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Yeah. I wanted to throw in one of the other reasons I hate Vimeo is that the comments, like the activity tab, has been broken for years for me. The only way I can ever read comments is if I actually open every single video I've ever posted and just manually look for comments. And I have like 300 videos.
Oh wow.
And so I just didn't bother. And every now that I did, Vimeo is a lot fewer people use Vimeo, but I was still getting lots of trashy comments on there. It was the same as YouTube, just only like 5 or 6 instead of like 20 or 30. But I mean, Vimeo loves to like make themselves sound like so artistic and blah blah blah, but it's just, I don't know.
Right.
So you started. Did you start teaching yourself videography, or did you go to school for it?
Not actually, neither photography or videography. Mostly self-taught. I've never taken a class, but than doing it since the
Yeah.
7th grade.
I mean, that's one thing that I love about, how accessible YouTube has gotten and everything like that, is that, there's tutorials for everything. How did you, well, you kind of said, but how did you decide I can't talk. How did you decide to start your Normalizing Nudity project? How did you pick who to interview? Like, again, we kind of went into this. What is the intent of the project? How have other news react? But yeah, kind of like, what was do you have an intent? Are you trying to change something? Like, I assume you're kind of trying to represent.
It's more of it's more of an education, I think. And, talking about comments, I get a lot of comments on my video. I have one,
YouTube is
my
trash,
top video is over, it's over 16 million views.
Wow.
Now. And I'll admit, part of that, again, because people can add your videos to channels, I get a lot of, I think it's on some like Indian type channel.
How do you, I know, like I get a lot of like Indian and Arabic comments and stuff, and those tend to be the most.
Yeah, so those, unless I am extremely bored and I want to take those into Google Translate to figure out what they're saying.
You always
those I just, I don't really get into that too much, but I do get a lot of inappropriate comments, or they're talking about the girl or her body or stuff like that.
The ones I get a lot are like, I tried to jack off but her face is too ugly, or any ones where my my kids were breastfeeding or whatever, it was like, I wish I was that kid. Like I wonder, I think a lot of it is, the trolls, where I refer to, 4chan and stuff, where it's like the apathy Olympics, where it's like, how can I cause the most damage to someone else while pretending to be the least affected? And I think that's a lot of the YouTube comments are like that, but there definitely are people too that, like I said, people are always equating female nipples with their dicks, and it's like, if you can go without your shirt, I should be allowed to grab your breasts? What?
Well, I will, that's kind of, those are the comments that I will tend to interact with, not quite to that degree, but people, I've had one where, it's an interview video and people are like, oh my gosh, could you imagine how bad this would be for society if you think we have a rape problem now? Man. And it's like, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, I've heard
there's nothing sexual about being nude.
Yeah.
And just because somebody's naked doesn't give you, any right to their body, or you shouldn't even be thinking that way.
I mean, that's the main thing, is it's always, who are you putting the onus of self-control on? Like, all these websites telling me that I'm too sexual so they have to take it down. Why don't you put the onus on the people who are choosing to take it sexually? Like, it's always like, the woman has to be chaste, otherwise, she deserved it. Every time you talk about these videos staying up, I just, like, in the back of my head, I'm, like, screaming. Because my regulars will have heard me say this a million times, but our going theory is that there's some cabal of haters that literally follows me from channel to channel, because even brand new accounts without topless topics anywhere in the title, if I link to it from my existing ones, suddenly it gets banned. And again, I just showed you the screenshot with the giant pixels. Got banned.
Yeah.
What? I did notice when I was looking at your channel recently that some of your thumbnails, you at least have a little bit of mosaic over that.
Right. So when I first started, this is the behind the scenes censoring that YouTube does. When I first started the channel, I would make my video and I would upload it, and I would put, I'd usually like fade in, and then at the end I'd fade to black, right? And when you upload a video to YouTube, it gives you 3 choices for thumbnails that you can pick from. And it was fine. And then I started getting, sometimes they would either choose, like, it'd be the point where somebody was like laughing. It would just be a very unattractive thumbnail, and I'd have like 3 bad choices. But really what drove me to the censored thumbnails was they started, if they would detect black at the beginning or end of my videos, that's what they would give me as my thumbnail choices. I would have 3 black squares. And of course you can't pick, but you can upload a thumbnail. Well, they have community guidelines for thumbnails, and even if the video is nude, you can't have nudity in your thumbnail.
So if the thumbnail is picked out of the video, they don't? Because I feel like I've still had ones taken out of my video that they still remove the thumbnail. But yeah, I know, like,
no, I've never.
That's another thing where I've had.
And so I had to start I had to start, it would be like, oh, I get, my choice is 3 black squares, so let me upload a thumbnail.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to censor it.
Yeah.
And so the ones that you see with censoring are that. And then what I finally started doing was I'm like, well, I'm not going to give them the option of, there's going to be no black in my video.
Okay.
And I used to, and some of them, I take that little logo, the little bug in the corner, the watermark, and at the end of the video, I'd blow it up and it would, fill the screen.
Okay.
But then they choose that because it was covering a whole lot of stuff. So now the watermark is always the same size. There's no black at the beginning or the end.
Yeah.
They tend to only give me one choice for a thumbnail, and it takes, sometimes I'll have to sit there and wait for like 5 minutes after the video is processed for a thumbnail to even appear. So they're definitely kind of still censoring in the background.
I definitely, like, I'll just have to try taking the thing out of the video, because I thought it was just the thumbnail straight up. But yeah, I mean, obviously they put the extra stress on the uploaded thumbnail to try to get against people that were uploading fake stuff that had nothing to do with the video. But it's like, is it like you're hurting all these other people? It doesn't the same thing. Also, I don't get away with even covering my entire thing, and yet somehow you do.
Yeah.
And it puts me in mind of, so December 20th, Instagram like rewrote their rules and they put it out, and there's a lot of outcry where they were claiming that they were doing it to attack child pornography, but it doesn't actually affect that at all. All it's affecting are sex workers, are strippers and people with OnlyFans or whatever, who, guess what? Sex work is still work. Everyone has sex. Like, it's insane how our first, I hate how our culture equates female nipples with nudity, but not men. And I hate how sex is treated as this, like, evil thing, where it's like, even mentioning it makes you the devil. As long as you show respect and don't, like, force people to look at porn. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like it's as complicated as the censors make it seem. But anyway, so, there was an outcry, but at the same time, people were saying, they've hated sex workers all along. It's not like all of a sudden. It's just that now they're a lot more aggressive for it. And like I said, I've given up on Instagram because I was getting 3+ bans a day, even for text-only posts. So, yeah, like I said, I kind of want to talk a lot about censorship, because it seems like we've had some of the same experiences and some not so same. Oh, I was going to say, so, talking about the comments, since you're not actually in the videos so much, it's the people that you're taking, do you still feel like the comments are attacking you? Or is it just attacking, someone your friend or the person that you worked with?
I do get, it varies. I'm very protective of anybody that's worked with me, so I'm not going to allow them to make, degrading comment. I mean, one of my videos is a trans, woman. And so, that got all sorts of comments as well. And, I police them as best I can. It's kind of a full-time job to deal with YouTube, but.
Well, you could always do the approval only, but.
So. Then I would probably never approve anything. And but I did recently. I figured out how that, like, you can block, keywords. And the big one for me was I didn't know it when I started the channel, but you can disallow any hyperlinks, because I would get tons of porn hyperlinks.
Oh, I know. And all the random, like.
And I would just have every day. Yeah, every day I would just be going through, and then you can block somebody, but that's like. Extra clicks.
Well, especially with Vimeo.
So,
Vimeo makes it really hard to ban people, but.
Yeah. So, yes, I definitely, I'm protective of those people. Those I don't feel like an attack on me, but I also get a lot of comments on the first video I posted, I used my camera. It's a mirrorless camera and a shotgun mic on the camera. And they complained about the audio. Oh, you can't hear. It's so hard to hear. You should have a microphone. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So I started using the microphone. And then I get people commenting about, oh, she looks uncomfortable. You should have them seated, like more like an interview style. So, okay, let me do that. Let me try that. So you'll see, like, I think third, fourth video that are on my channel, the women are sitting. And even before we started recording, when I had the girl sit down, she, it wasn't this chair. You probably can't see it, but as soon as you sit in a chair, your stomach, your belly. So now she's like really self-conscious about the way her stomach looks, right? And so I did those videos. We both shot on the same day, but after that, I was like, no more chairs.
So my
you can just shut up.
I was gonna say my recording area, like I said, in my shed, but it's too cold to record there right now. But I have a couch, like a love seat that I got, and it's a very comfy love seat. But I noticed, like, when I would have people over, they'd just be like, what? And it wasn't attractive at all. So I put it in my kids' room, and then I have these, like, bar stools. And I don't really like those either, honestly, because I need to find something that's, like, in between the two. I think the chairs they have in the, like, presidential one, where they're sort of, like, firm, but you have backing, that's kind of like what I would like. But yeah, I know, like, I had the same situation. I will tell you, I mean, you've probably realized this by now also, but people will always critique you. Like, you could never put a video
I stopped. I was like, after that, I just,
like, you can read it, and
I'm not going to listen to the internet anymore. I'm just going to do my thing. And plus, these people they're not my peers. They're not audio experts. They're not video experts. They're not cinematographers.
A lot of them will do it just to troll you.
They
do it because they want to make you, So I learned that before I started doing Topless Topics, I had a gaming channel for a long time, and I made the mistake. I was so dumb. I tried to, I shared it to, the V 4chan board, and I very stupidly, like, they were like, oh, do this, do that, do this, do that. So I made like 50 versions of one video, and then I was like, wait, they don't actually care. They're just trolling. So.
Dance, puppets, dance.
So you, let me see. So what are the reactions? What is your comments? Like, again, we kind of talked about this. Do you reply? Yeah, I was going to say also on my videos or whatever, I basically just turn comments off, because I don't want the people, whatever. Yeah. And the couple of times I've done it, like, approval only or whatever, like, anytime I have someone else in the video with me, especially if it's a guy, which it almost always is, because I can't really seem to find women willing to even sit next to me, if I'm topless and they're not, like, there's just a lot of fear out there, even among nudist women, because there's so many, perverts out there that just, I mean,
and that, I'll just, don't lose your train of thought, but I do want to, you mentioned, like, wow, you're kind of lucky that I have so many people that are willing to do this. And that's, I think, another, they're mostly, because there's a lot of closet nudists, they would be mortified if people found out that they did this, or their family would disown them or whatever. And, sometimes that's just because people don't understand. They think it's they think that any nudist camp, is just like an orgy or something. Well, that's why
I tell my...
They can't break sexuality away from nudity, but so the people that I work with, I mean, they're, nude models, and they're already on the internet naked. So for them to do this video and be on YouTube, it's like, what's the big deal? So I can definitely see.
So I was going to say,
kind of a normal cut of society, I would not.
Yeah, so 2 points on that. One, like I try to tell my followers, like, I understand that, sorry, I understand that this is a difficult thing to share on your own social media and stuff, because there is that, knee-jerk reaction where it's like, oh, why are you posting porn? Like, people aren't even going to take half a second. And while nudists might share my content with each other, nudism is a very insular thing. It's really not, at least from my observation, you don't really reach people and then, convince them, oh, it's not so bad. So the only people finding my stuff are nudists who are sharing with each other, and porn bots who somehow manage to find my stuff. I'm not really finding people who aren't already okay with the idea of non-sexual nudity. But and like, there are not many nudist women who are willing to be on camera, because it's really demeaning to have you put, your heart and soul and try to be very, eloquent and to the point and talk about something specific, and all the comments are either nice tits, ugly tits, nice tits but your face is like, like, there's nothing about what you're saying.
Yeah, right.
And, every day on Twitter I get like 10 or 13 new followers who are just porn. Yesterday, someone retweeted a video of me with my kid in it where he was asking me, I didn't have my shirt on. He was clothed, but I didn't have my shirt on. He was like, why is your shirt off? And I was like, because I'm trying to make it so that, you know, both Daddy and I can just, you know, be topless outside without it being a big deal. And someone retweeted that video. I went to his thing, because I always check and like, oh yeah, you're a porn bot block. He had some borderline child pornography that he also had on his street. I reported it, but I was just like, holy fuck. And it's just, ugh.
Yeah.
So yeah, but basically you're saying like you're protective of the other people. Do you ever feel like if people, I'm sure you had people accuse you of being like a perv or like having sex with the people on your video or whatever. Does that make you feel any certain way?
I've kind of dealt with that just more from the photography side point of everything.
I have a story about that too when you're done.
Yeah, it's so I'm kind of used to it. I understand. People just, again, they don't understand.
They project.
Like
they project.
I've had people be like, they're just like, oh my gosh, they'll make like really gross comments or something about like, oh, if I was there in front of a naked woman or blah blah blah, and you're just like,
you're scary.
I got past that so long ago, and I'll kind of segue because I was thinking about this when you were talking earlier. Most people, it's a problem with our society because of how much we sexualize nudity. But when you do have, your first nudist experience, because I had mine like back in 2015 going to hot springs, we're like, oh my gosh, especially for men, it's like, oh, I'm going to go there and I'm going to have an erection or everybody's going to be looking at me and whatever.
I get that all the time, people asking me, so.
Yeah, and it definitely can and does happen, with men the first time, but after a while you get used to it and that's no longer a factor. And then two, nobody cares. Nobody cares that you're naked.
As long as you're not touching.
Staring at you.
If you're touching, and that's the...
Right, yeah. If you're behaving yourself, then you're going to be fine. But, nobody's staring at you. Nobody cares. And one of the things that's beautiful about it is that it's one of the few places that you can go and experience normal people, because our society is hypersexualized everything. And so growing up, whether it's TV, magazines, the internet now, whatever, you're only going to see perfect bodies. That's what you're going to be inundated with. But if you go to a nudist, camp or lake or pool or whatever it is, you're going to see women there that are men with big penises and small penises. You're going to, I saw a woman with one leg, or somebody who's had a mastectomy. Or, big women, small women, big men, small,
class
you're going to
structure
see
either. Like, there's no, like...
Right, yeah. That guy could be a millionaire, or that guy could have scraped, his last $8 to come here today. So, yeah, you get that the whole of society, and you just learn, and you get past their body, and you just start talking to them, and you're like, you're a cool person. And I totally forgot that we were both naked. It's a very beautiful experience. And so, to kind of come back to your question. So with people making comments about like, because I'll get that on my comment, like, oh, are you naked when you're interviewing her? It's like, no, because I don't need to be. There's no reason for me to be naked, to conduct this interview.
Just made me think of the whole Weinstein thing where like he would invite them over and he'd just be like with his dick out, and he wasn't a nudist.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I don't need to be naked to do this. We're not, this is, now if it were now, obviously most of you, hopefully you blurred my face because of my job, and I understand that. I can't appear naked on the internet.
I appreciate your trust. So I promise I won't let anyone say.
But so I mean, if I could, and it was an activity video, I would have no problem being naked. Like, hey, I'm on your channel from here down. You can see all of me. I don't care. I would be, if it didn't freak out my neighbors and I end up in prison, I'd walk around the neighborhood naked because I like the sun on my body. I don't care. It's not that big a deal to me. But for my channel, I don't need to be naked when I'm interviewing with people. That's not what it's about. But again, if we were doing an activity, I'd have no problem.
And I mean, there is a
doing
layer
that.
of, gender in it, because I feel like, I mean, this is me from my perspective, I feel like a man going naked is sort of like, look at me, it's almost for themselves more. Whereas a woman being naked, it's like doing it for other people to look at her. Like, it feels like that. Not that you want that to be the case. So I can understand that. If I can say two things that made me think of. One, you're talking about seeing all types of bodies and everything like that. Yeah, again, like, frog in my throat. I do notice as soon as we did start going to news resorts, I noticed a lot of people with like very dark skin who don't ever put sunscreen on, apparently. Yeah. So there's a thing that comes up a lot, especially when I'm talking to other nudists on Twitter, and like my regulars and I, we kind of lament the fact that all these marketing materials for nudist places, the whole freaking time, they show skinny, sexy, young white women in the marketing. And I always say that that's just a big giant error, because first of all, you're telling skinny white women, come here and be oogled. And you're telling people that aren't skinny white women, we don't want you here. And also the people that you are going to attract are going to go there with the expectation of staring at women. Like, those are not the people you want at nudist resorts.
Right, yeah.
And then the other thing, talking about people having erections at nudist places or whatever, I stress very much in my videos, I understand that it's only like 0.1% of the people that watch my videos that might actually want to become better people and see women as people, even if we have our shirts off. But for that 0.1%, you cannot masturbate while watching my videos. If you are doing sexual things while watching my videos, you are just reaffirming that nudity is sex, nudity is sex, nudity is sex. So, I get these comments just like, I can't help myself. I'm like, yes, you can. You are not physically compelled.
You're not, yes. You are more than an animal. You have the ability
I mean,
to
there's,
do this.
and you're talking about like the creepy comments. It's like, it's all projection. It's just they themselves would be like, oh, I'd have such a hard time controlling myself. Therefore, you must, if I don't have self-control, you don't either. But
Yeah.
that's what I try to keep in mind with like all these hater comments or whatever. I have to be like, this isn't about me. This is about that person.